Hey y'all, welcome back to Scary Tales. This is Bob. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about Bigfoot today. A little bit about the origins of Bigfoot, the name Bigfoot, and why so many other cultures have so many different names and descriptions for this Bigfoot. The hairy man, the Yeti, the abominable snowman, whatever they choose to call him. Wild men's stories are found among the indigenous population of the Pacific Northwest. That's where it all began for the modern day Bigfoot. And us fans of Bigfoot know well about Willow Creek and Bluff Creek and Patterson-Gimlin film. That famous footage with the Bigfoot looking back, Patty, looking back at the camera. The legends existed prior to a single name for the creature. Many thousands of years ago, there were cave drawings of Bigfoot. The Native Americans have known about Bigfoot well before we ever stepped foot on this land. They differed in their details both regionally and between families in the same community. Similar stories of wild men are found on every continent except Antarctica. Sorry about that. Ecologist Robert Michael Pyle argues that most cultures have human-like giants in their folk history. We have this need for some larger-than-life creature, he says. I guess everybody deep down wants to believe in... everybody likes to be scared a little bit, I think. Believe in the boogeyman, tell some ghost stories. I know I do. In 1951, Eric Shipton had photographed what he described as a Yeti footprint. This photograph generated considerable attention, and the story of the Yeti entered into popular consciousness. The notoriety of ape men grew over the decade, culminating in 1958 when large footprints were found in Northern California by a bulldozer operator named Gerald Crew. And we have all seen the pictures of him holding up those casts. Sets of large tracks appeared multiple times around a road construction site in Bluff Creek where he was working. After not being taken seriously about what he was seeing, Crew brought in his friend Bob Titmus to cast the prints with plaster. So they did that, and the story was published in the Humboldt Times along with a photo of Crew holding one of the casts. Locals had been calling the unseen track maker Bigfoot since the late summer, which the Humboldt Times columnist Andrew Genzoli shortened to Bigfoot for his article. And that's how the name Bigfoot was coined. It gained international attention when the story was picked up by the Associated Press, and then it just went ape shit. Pardon my French. No pun intended. Following the death of Ray Wallace, a local logger, his family attributed the creation of the footprints to him, which is so not true. Everybody wants to get in on the story. Everybody wants to write on the shirt tails, get some sort of notoriety by making up their own story, saying they were part of this, part of that, or part of a hoax. Or the wife of L.W. Scoop Beale, the editor of the Humboldt Standard, which later combined with the Humboldt Times, in which Genzoli's story had appeared, stated that her husband was in on the hoax with Wallace. That makes me so mad. In 1958, that was a watershed year, not just for the Bigfoot story itself, but also for the culture that surrounds it. The first Bigfoot hunters appeared following the discovery of footprints at Bluff Creek, California. And within a year, Tom Slick, who had funded several searches for Yeti in the Himalayas earlier in that decade, organized searches for Bigfoot in the area around Bluff Creek. And as Bigfoot has become better known and become quite a phenomenon in popular culture, sightings have spread throughout North America. In addition to the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lake regions and the southeastern United States have had many reports and Bigfoot sightings. I made this map, I came across this map of Bigfoot sightings, the continental United States and Canada, and it shows where the Bigfoot sightings are mostly concentrated, and you'll see the Pacific Northwest is really dark, really shaded in. It's a very interesting map to look at. That was on the BFRO page. I found this map. And so why do so many cultures have a version of Bigfoot? That's a good question. And a lot of people don't know all these things about Bigfoot, so I wanted to just dispel many myths, rumors, or whatever, and just give the facts as they are, and let you take them and sort them out yourself and decide for yourself. More than a quarter of Americans believe in Bigfoot, a recent poll just found, and that's amazing. 25% of all people living in the United States believe that there is a Bigfoot, and they claim this legendary bipedal ape has what it is, they think, is a long-lost relative of humans, and it evades detection in remote woodland areas. Although it may seem strange to think that a 7-foot tall land mammal could go unnoticed for so long, the notion is actually widespread, and these things just aren't just 7 feet. I've heard of sightings from 3 foot, 4 foot tall, all the way up to 10, 11, sometimes 12 feet tall. A lot of like shows and documentaries, you'll hear all kinds of different sizes, along with the sizable minority of Americans. A recent poll found that 21% of Canadians also believe in an undiscovered hairy humanoid, which they prefer to call Sasquatch. In Russia, belief in a similar creature called the Yeti is so common that local branches of the Russian government have funded Yeti expeditions. And the country has even considered founding an entire institute devoted to the study of Yetis. I think that's awesome. The Yeti is also said to roam the Himalayas, sometimes going by the name Métis. Métis. However you want to pronounce that, Mehteh, or the Abominable Snowman, as we most have heard him called there. Not to be outdone, Australia has the Yowie, which there's a great documentary on Amazon Prime about Australia's Bigfoot, the Yowie. In South America, a mythical beast called the Mapinguari. Malaysians, meanwhile, they fear the orang minyak, or oily man monster. Why do so many cultures have this different names and descriptions for the wild man? Well, although no one knows for certain how various legends got started, they all just seemingly arose in each culture independently, rather than being spread by travelers through trade. There's a gentleman, Benjamin Radford. He's a deputy editor of a magazine called The Skeptical Inquirer. He also authored a few books. He's very some very good books. He said that most of the myths trace back much further than the 1950s, and like I was saying earlier, when the explorer Eric Shipton photographed what he took to be the abominable snowman footprints on Mount Everest, while the famous abominable snowman track photographs led to worldwide interest in the creature, they didn't create the beast, but instead for the first time offered tantalizing, tangible evidence of a regional legend. So that's real interesting. And a guy named Brian Sykes, a professor of human genetics at Oxford University, he recently embarked on a project to DNA test all available evidence for the existence of Bigfoot. He said that belief in Bigfoot like beasts is a very consistent feature across cultures. So much so that he said he read about indigenous people not even bothering to question the existence, as they are so much a part of everyday life. And that's true. That's how the Native Americans are and were. He was a part of their lives. He lived in the forest, and They traded amongst each other, a different tribe, hairy man. The reason for the myth's wide occurrence, he said, is one thing he intends to try and find out. So that's just something he's trying to look into, Sykes said. But the existence of so many separate myths don't necessarily count as mounting evidence that we really do have the feral cousins out there in the woods. Instead, the myths may all stem from the same aspect of the human psyche, the desire for fascination with another. Radford also said the idea of a wild man like other creature coexisting with us, but just beyond our understanding, is heavily rooted in mythology. And it's also heavily rooted in truth and legend. There's so many stories, just like the Albert Ostman incident, that story I told y'all last week. One of my favorite Bigfoot stories. That happened way before the Willow Creek and the Bluff Creek incident, with Patterson, 1967, with Patterson and Gimlin, and the famous photo of Patty, as we all see all the time, the traditional Bigfoot with the arms spread out, the big gait, and him turning back to look at the camera. That is just so traditional, so famous, the most famous, most recognizable, I would say, photo of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and as we know him, fans of Bigfoot, Patty, because it was a female. There were breasts. If you look at that picture closely, you can see that it had breasts, and so it's Patty. And anyway, I urge y'all to come back to Scary Tales for some more of the scary, the unusual, the unidentified, just the spooky stories, the good old-fashioned campfire stories that we all like and love. And sorry about that plane going overhead. Some things you can't just do anything about. But you guys are great, and please come back for more Scary Tales. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.